Hi, folks. Welcome to another Let's Talk ASPM podcast. I'm Dana Torgerson, VP of Product Marketing at ArmorCode. With me is Mark Lambert, our Chief Product Officer at ArmorCode. How you doing, Mark?
Fantastic, Dana. Good to see you as always.
Good to see you too, sir. Let's talk about compliance. And specifically, let's zero in on something that's timely right now. It's in some ways it's getting talk. In other ways, folks aren't aware of it yet. So I think this would be a great topic for us to raise awareness on CRA, the Cyber Resilience Act. So what's going on in the industry, first of all?
Yeah. So, if I break it down, the Cyber Resilience Act is really the European government putting in formal requirements around software security and vulnerability management, vulnerability disclosure. Really, there's this growing awareness that cybersecurity is a major threat, both economically as well as operationally for a society. So, as the same as the European Union did with the GDPR for privacy, they're now the CRA and actually some of the other standards like DORA as well for financial are really security forward, making sure that we put a program in place so that we can make sure we're delivering secure products into the market.
Okay. And I know the Cyber Resilience Act, if you look at the language and it's available out there, folks can go check it out, and maybe we'll add a link to the official write-up, the legal write-up in our description. But it talks about digital elements a lot. What exactly is a digital element?
That's good. Yeah, the term that it uses is a product with digital elements. In essence, this means it's looking at the combination of hardware and software. So if we think about a product being some kind of IoT device, so a thermostat in your house, right? That is a product with a digital element. It has software embedded within it. However, the scope of CRA is not limited to IoT devices. It actually also covers any software deployed on a personal computer, a laptop, or a desktop. It also covers any software that's deployed on a mobile device. What it doesn't do is it doesn't cover cloud-hosted software unless that cloud-hosted software is in support of the functionality of that device. So again, using the example of a thermostat, the cloud services that support that thermostat, no matter where they're hosted, could be hosted in the US, doesn't matter. Those cloud services are now under CRA and covered by the Cybersecurity Act, Cyber Resilience Act. Additionally, it also covers things like games as well. So, game on a gaming station also has to be CRA, falls under the Cyber Resilience Act. And what it means is that any company that wants to sell a product into the European market needs to have a CE badge. Basically, it's an approval badge that you have to go through. You have to have your processes audited, things like that. A bit like a SOC 2 Type 2 compliance for us, for example. But if you want to be doing business in Europe, you need that. Otherwise, as of December 2027, you will not be able to sell in Europe. And while that sounds like a long way away, it's actually not. If you can believe it, it was at the end of 25, and actually by September 11th of next year, 26, you have to start reporting your vulnerabilities. You have to start doing vulnerability disclosure in September of next year. So right now, many organizations are scrambling to really get a handle on this. But then, as you said, there's a whole bunch of other organizations that don't even know it exists yet.
Wow, that's pretty aggressive too. Most breach reporting has a certain SLA or an expectation of time, but this reporting is 24-hour disclosure period? It's a real tight window.
It's a really tight window, and there are some classifications. So when you go, what you do is you classify a product, and then depending on the product, the SLAs are slightly different. But in essence, once you become aware of an exploit, you have to disclose it within 24 hours. then you have 48 hours to actually have a solution or a patch or some kind of a remediation or mitigation control that can be performed for
Okay.
criticals. And then I think it's 7 days, if I'm recalling off the top of my head. I should remember that right now, but
Yeah.
I'm blanking.
Yep.
For those which are the category two devices. But the bottom line is you have
Yeah.
to track all of this. And there are major fines in place if you're in non-compliance. And this vulnerability disclosure process is the one that's got most people kind of like on their toes. There
Yeah.
is a set of things that you have to do. You have to have a well-defined process. You have to, define how you deliver secure software to the market, all of those things. Same kind of stuff that you would do to get other certifications. So a lot of the
Yep.
things that people are doing around NIST, for example, is probably going to help you a lot there.
Yeah.
But then you've got this accelerated disclosure of vulnerabilities in those timelines with fines associated with them
Yeah.
that have a lot of people kind of like paying close attention.
Wow. So, like anything with compliance, you got to adhere to the framework. It sounds like the linchpin for all this is knowing whether you're affected or not. And some of that guidance it gets back to that holistic view of the product. Is that correct? The systems that's involved of both software and hardware. This is like for the first time ever where they're thinking holistically, right?
Yeah, and it's actually there are other European regulations which are a little bit more ambiguous and kind of like unattainable. So DORA is a great example
Yeah.
where that's actually written in such a way that some of the things are actually unachievable, and it's kind of like a little bit vague, to say the least.
Sure.
CRA definitely seems a lot more thought through. And when we start thinking about CRA, if you think about a product oriented company, so a company that would have a product security program. So again, I'll use my example of that thermostat device. That's a product,
Yeah.
right? It's deployed on infrastructure that I don't manage, right? The same is true with a mobile device and a desktop, but it's even more so when I talk about my thermostat, right? There's an actual physical version, and then there's software versions, and then I'm going to have different devices with different versions. All that combination becomes really, really difficult to manage. So it's a product security problem that I now need to actually deliver externally. So it's not a case of, okay, it's just a code repo, let's look at a cloud infrastructure. No, it's the cloud infrastructure, it's the device, it's the code that's running on the device, it's the version that's deployed. And then I need to be able to identify which versions of the software are in an active part of the life cycle, which are end of life. All of these things
Oh
I
my
have to
gosh.
start tracking as well.
So you start making a product and you think it's going to be in market for 5-6 years. You're on the hook for 5-6 years easily and beyond.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh.
And
Well, that's
that's
a lot of problems for enterprises. So if it comes down to visibility, like any compliance framework, and you can always break it security down by the people and the process and the technologically speaking, how can ArmorCode customers use the ArmorCode platform to be able to help address this?
Yeah, so there's a few ways that we help with this. So firstly, of course, we're bringing all of that data together into a centralized location. So that being able to unify the visibility across all of your different sources, so that when you become aware, you can actually see that you're aware. You can start monitoring the SLAs. You can also automate a lot of your workflows that way as well. So as soon as something is identified and flagged that it actually has it's being exploited, you can trigger a bunch of automated workflows from a point of reporting, but also around ticketing escalations, disclosure escalations, things like that, which means that you can be very kind of attentive and in front of this, rather than kind of having to sweep through a number of issues and trying to find the problems. You get immediate visibility as to where all of those issues start and triggering those workflows to support the SLAs. Furthermore, we can customize the platform to bring in custom attributes, custom fields, so that we can actually tailor the platform specific to your vulnerability management program as you're defining it around CRA. So you may have different ways of classifying applications, for example, because as I mentioned, product classification is a key component of CRA, and especially CRA readiness. If you're a large organization that has got products that have been in the market for decades, you need to be able to classify that ecosystem and really orchestrate your reporting and your programs appropriately. So bringing in that classification information is key as well. Second thing is around versioning, and I touched upon this already, but being able to understand that a product has multiple versions, being able to organize those versions into different systems. So often when we're thinking about product security problems, it's not just the internet device, the internet connected thermostat. What I might be doing, let's say I'm doing office automation, I'm going to have a whole bunch of thermostats in different places. I'm going to have the actual HVAC system. I might also be running the security controls for the doors. All of these different product versions will roll up into a deployment at a particular facility. So that what you need is you need to be able to organize this data, be able to understand the versions, so that when I've got a vulnerability on a particular product, I need to be able to understand which versions that propagates to. So when I have a mitigation strategy, I want to also be able to propagate that mitigation strategy as well across those different versions. And as I'm assembling these systems, it's not all going to be code that I'm writing. There's going to be third-party systems that I bring into it. Maybe there's a specific router that we're deploying as part of this system, or maybe my device has some embedded component that is coming from a third party that in turn has software embedded on it. In that kind of scenario, I need to be able to handle software bills of materials, SBOMs. I need to be able to bring those into the platform. I need to be able to understand what vulnerabilities exist. I need to understand where they are. I need to be able to also leverage SBOMs for disclosure as well. So while CRA doesn't specifically dictate software bill of materials as the way to do the disclosure, it certainly does orientate the reader in that direction. So generation of SBOMs for your products, and then embedding in vulnerability disclosure through VEX, for example, for delivery of that vulnerability information.
That's amazing. I'm glad you were able to lay that out. But folks might be still wondering, our listeners, how can they get involved? What can they do?
Yeah, sure. And that's a great question. I mean, right now, I mentioned earlier, a lot of people don't even know what's involved here. It's many organizations I talk to that don't even realize. I mean, the bottom line is, if you are doing business in Europe, the chances are you are impacted by the Cyber Resilience Act. And while 2 years sounds like a long way, and for sure there is going to be evolution on this as the EU kind of refines the processes, but it's already a law. It's already in place. Those 2 years are going to go really, really quickly. This is now October of 2025. We're going to be at Christmas very, very quickly. It happens way too quick. And if you're one of these large organizations with a product portfolio, you need to orientate. So question is, how can you get going? How can you learn from some peers that have already started preparing? And this is where the Purple Belt community can really come in and help. So the Purple Belt community is a community that we sponsor. It has a whole bunch of industry peers talking about different topics. Cyber Resilience Act is one of those, which they currently have a center of excellence going on. So I would go to the Purple Belt community, check out the things that's already been happening. There's been a couple of different sessions already done on CRA. There was a webinar a few months ago. There was I hosted a panel at Black Hat in August. That's all there. And then apply to join, and then get part of that that center of excellence, and start to learn from your peers as to how they're figuring out how to scale, because there's a lot of conversations going on in the industry right now as to what to do, what to wait on. But the bottom line is, if you don't do anything right now, if you just sit and wait without doing anything, you're going to be in a really bad position come September of next year, which is when you need to start reporting.
September 11th, 2026, correct?
Exactly right.
Wow. Well, it's time to navigate these waters, folks. I hope this is helpful. We'll make sure you have links to the Purple Book community assets and these recordings down in the description, as well as checking out more about CRA and compliance at armorcode.com. Mark, as always, thank you for your time, sir.
Thanks so much, Dana. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, folks.